May I start, Mr. Speaker, by saying that I agree very strongly with the Right Honourable Lady about what she says about the tone of this debate, and I propose to say something about that. And may I also say that I agree with her that this debate does indeed take place as we approach a very sombre and important moment in the history of our country. But I must take issue with her, respectfully, about the disappointingly inept intervention of Sir Richard Dearlove and Lord Guthrie on the question of security. I have taken very careful advice on what they said and looked into it extremely carefully, and I believe that their intervention is not only incorrect, but it is also inappropriate, and I deeply regret it. Now, Mr. Speaker, we have known many worse times in this country and some more dangerous times. But as the Right Honourable Lady rightly said, not since the war has this House, this Parliament faced a more important moment. And it is incumbent on us, and it is our duty, to recover our sense of proportion and to restore some dignity, reason and calm to this debate, both inside and outside the House. And I very strongly sense that the country is fed up with this debate and is desperate for us to come to an agreement. And for their Parliament, to finally rise to the occasion to see the country right. Mr. Speaker, in my speech to this House on the 6th of December, I made plain, which I must do again, that I was a staunch Remainer, that I believe that our wonderful country has made an historically bad decision, but the decision they made to leave in the referendum of 2016, I believe very strongly must be honoured. I am very proud, Mr. Speaker, genuinely proud, to be able to speak in this debate as a Member of Parliament for 35 years, as a Privy Councillor, a former officer in the British Army, and as a loyal servant and subject of the Queen. And I say this because I hate, like many other members do, being regularly called a traitor in correspondence and elsewhere. It is very necessary for the language surrounding this debate to calm down and for more respect and dignity to govern our debate, not necessarily in this House, which should be robust and is robust, but particularly outside, whereas the Right Honourable Lady quite rightly said we have seen the most disgraceful behaviour towards members of Parliament, journalists, and more especially, because we can take it, to members of the public. And what we are discussing here, Mr. Speaker, is but the beginning of a long journey. As my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, said in a very good speech winding up the other night, the withdrawal agreement is the unavoidable gateway, whether to a Canadian, Norwegian or a Chequers destination. It is therefore essential that Parliament is not so wet and timid and lacking in will that it cannot find a sufficient consensus to move forward on this first step and create the architecture and footings for the future negotiations once we have become a third country. I believe it would be quite wrong to postpone the Article 50 deadline, and that the House must be prepared to earn the undying contempt of the country if it simply does not have the collective will, discipline and sense of duty to come to an agreement. The House has before it, Mr. Speaker, a sensible compromise agreement, not to everyone's taste, inevitably, drafted with the greatest care and agreed between all the members of the European Union to manage Britain's exit from the Union with the least possible disruption, whilst allowing progress to further steps down the road to good neighbourly relations which we all want in the very different future that lies ahead of us. In my judgment, sir, the outcome is plain and clear and staring us in the face, whatever might be our favourite solution. If the House votes against the one compromise proposal that is on the table, they will with absolute certainty be voting for chaos, with an outcome being very likely the precise opposite of that which they intended.
Absolutely right.
And I remind the House, Mr. Speaker, that this compromise is the only agreement on offer, and to try to reopen it risks losing even that. I therefore urge the House to take into account that our exit from the EU is going to take a long time, and I think we should be clearer and franker with the public. We cannot expect arrangements and institutions that have grown together side by side in the interests of all sides over 45 years to be separated in one go without grievous damage to each side. And it therefore remains my view that the Prime Minister's plan has carefully and cleverly managed to try to separate Britain from the European Union. 45 years of combined and earnest endeavour and legislation with miraculously, frankly, minimal damage to both sides. We must keep it this way, for, Mr. Speaker, if only we could grasp it, there is a golden prize, given the circumstances. And I must say to honourable and right honourable friends, to my honourable and right honourable friends, and to my friends, I hope, my many friends on the other side of the House, that it would be extremely ill-judged to throw it away, and would, above all, be totally contrary to our national interest. My late father, Mr. Speaker, a former member of this House and for a time the leader of the other place, once said of these debates that if politics is the art of the possible, the art of the statesman must be to make possible that which is necessary. It is my judgment from talking to colleagues on both sides of the House that the real national consensus is actually for the deal on the table, warts and all, if only we could get there. We should realise that this really should no longer be a party political matter. And the public expect us, rightly, to work together across party lines to achieve a conclusion on this massive problem. I think that members of Parliament should be able to see that this is a prospect towards which there can be a gradual advance with the current compromise deal as a good first step. May I conclude, Mr. Speaker, by saying again that I am deeply and genuinely sad that our extraordinary country has reached this very sorry pass. But I feel very strongly that we must not reject this amendment and thus descend into constitutional and, I'm afraid, administrative chaos. I am very strongly against what would be a divisive and poisonous and hateful second referendum campaign, and I believe Parliament must do its duty here and now and come to an agreement. So let us agree amongst ourselves. This country is not an island on its own. It is a proud nation whose success has always been derived from a wider world. Our history and our geography have given us great advantages. Our language is the way the world communicates. Our capital is one of the greatest cities in the world, and in every international and domestic fora elsewhere, people listen to the views of this country because of our great experience and expertise. We really should have the confidence to press on and to cease this appalling and pointless arguing, much of it on the head of a pin, and preserve and enhance the cohesion, the unity and the stability of our country. We are a humane, liberal-minded, tolerant, moderate nation. So let us now push on with the task at hand and show our electors and the world the kind of spirit and judgment they rightly expect from us.